let's go right to Minnesota. So Minnesota obviously remains
Oh.
this sort of tinderbox right now with protesters clashing with ICE. I want to talk today, though, about how this sort of puts the president in this sort of no-win situation. I mean, on the one hand, they're watching these, escalating protests, the takeover of a church by anti-ICE protesters. There was a conservative influencer over the weekend who was beaten up.
Nick
Viral
Sargent.
videos, a viral video of an ICE agent saying that people were impeding him trying to arrest a child sex offender. They have at the ready 1,500 active duty Army paratroopers on standby right now, ready to go in. The FBI is also asking for volunteers to head into the state. But on the other hand, the president's team, political team, they're looking at this polling right now and they know they're cratering, right? People are losing support for ICE. They are losing swing voters and minority voters over this issue. And that's obviously two demographics that are really important to the 2024 coalition, very important in the midterms. And they're suggesting that the White House sort of recalibrate right now. So let's just start there. Sean, how can the White House recalibrate this issue when things are escalating right now and they're trying to get a hold of, what's going on the ground without the political blowback?
So I think a couple things. One, Dan noted this earlier this morning when we were on News Nation, that it's difficult when both sides don't want to back down. So that's just the premise of this. But I do think that we, at least from my side, again, I'll let Dan give his piece, but this was a legal, lawful operation. And so now to say, how do you take it down? How do you, there are people that are impeding it. So either you allow them to get away with this. Let's remember like the premise. A, people are in the country illegally. B, there was illegal fraud going on there, which is why they surged to begin with. And 3, now you have citizens blocking legal operations. So you've got 3 wrongs. And I think the administration's view is, why are we the ones to back down? This is, to me, a jump ball. The administration rightly should be concerned, politically speaking, about the perception of what happens. Number 2, the president's about to leave the country. So what do you want to do domestically if you're not going to be here? And then 3 is, you do have to wonder, do the Democrats at some point overplay their hand, like with Walz calling the, atrocities and their Gestapo force and all this stuff? At some point, does this springboard back to them? And do you take the chance that maybe it goes back to them? So I think there's a lot of probable debate about what they should do.
Yeah.
But I look, part of this is you've got to question yourself whether on the policy, if we're there to do a legal operation, why should we back down? I think is pretty much the mentality.
But I think, yeah.
Go ahead, Dan, jump in.
I mean, I think the problem is, and I said this, Sean, you referenced it earlier, this started, all of this in Minneapolis, over Somalian child care fraud, okay? Worthy of questioning, worthy of investigating. Usually that's the Department of Justice, Department of Labor. They went in a different direction, okay? So I think part of the problem is the initial reason for all of this is like really not even in the headlines anymore, right? This has now become a little bit of like, who's what is biggest in the neighborhood, because what you have is both sides feel like we simply cannot back down. Trump people feel like, hey, we have a right to do this. This is what we got elected on. We're going after criminals. The other side of it is, in the process of going after criminals, it is pretty clear you are, kind of sweeping up or stopping people who are not criminals. In some instances, who are U.S. citizens, right? Who don't have their wallet on them at that moment. And so you have Blue America feeling like we have to take a stand. The administration, to Sean's point, is like, we cannot back down. If Blue America wins, like pushing back against ICE, it's going to snowball. But I go back to independents and people in the middle who decide elections. The images, to Sean's point, of Democrats in a church are not good. The images of multiple troops with huge weaponry knocking on doors in, middle-class neighborhoods is not good either. Yeah. And so I think it is a little bit of a jump ball in that, Democrats get too out of control. It's like the tail wagging the dog. But right now, you can't argue that the politics are on the administration side anymore on this. They're not.
Right.
Dan, the Justice Department announced this weekend that they're probing Minneapolis Mayor Frey and Governor Walz for obstructing. They've obviously responded, said they're just trying, that the DOJ is trying to intimidate them from speaking out. But I listened to the interview that Mayor Frey did on CNN yesterday morning, and again, he used words like invaded Minnesota, or under siege, occupied, unconstitutional, that their protesters are resisting being invaded by our own federal government. So I guess my question is, like, have Democrats, well, they haven't, have Democrats done enough to sort of encourage violence to don't do violence, encourage peaceful protests? And if not, like, does this sort of language raise to, the standard of obstruction, would you say?
Oh, it's hard to kind of say a cause and effect, but I will say the language is not good. I think Jacob Fry's looked terrible almost this whole time. I think Tim Walz is the same. This goes to the idea of when you say something is like this existential crisis, people hear it and think I have to take matters into my own hands and go do crazy things. Just like I think the same is true at times with the language that the right uses to describe people. But it is not good. I think I'm looking at people like Amy Klobuchar, people who want to run. We haven't talked about it yet, but there is an open Senate seat in Minnesota. There is a Democratic primary between a kind of moderate Annie Craig and a more progressive candidate. They are going at each other now over who can be the most ICE candidate, which is a harbinger of what I think is going to come in the Democratic Party. Because we talked about Spanberger, there is this feeling now the politics are on our side. Therefore, people are like, let's go to 11 on this. So it is a problem. Our leadership in Minnesota looks terrible right now, but I wouldn't quite say it is a cause and effect. Just like when Trump says crazy things, Republicans say that doesn't, that he's not instructing people to go do crazy things.
I haven't seen the comments by Angie Craig, but I mean, if she's trying to get to the left of her opponent, like that, like, again, it's the same, like you said, Abigail Spanberger situation. Angie Craig, having covered the House, she was for a long time considered, the centrist, moderate, pragmatic voice amongst Democrats in the House, somebody who would stand up for law enforcement, or you would think stand up for ICE. But the fact that, I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, the Democrats just going so far to the left on this. Go ahead, Sean.
I just want to make one point, and I know that like both sides at different times have their hypocrisy moments, so I'll concede that. But I will say that there is something rich about the current situation, right? So Jacob Fry, as you said, is using, and Tim Walz are using all this rhetoric. They're basically, we want to protect people that are in Minnesota illegally, including criminals, but we want to keep out legal law enforcement from coming into our state. They call that the invasion. The invasion is when, frankly, people came into the country illegally. Secondly, Tim Walz during COVID deployed the National Guard to go after Minnesotans. So for him now to talk about an invasion and constitutional rights, I mean, look, again, remember, go to the videotape, take a look at how Tim Walz acted during COVID, and then come back.